I think what's regarding the discussion, of today, it's a kind of round table when you have, the representatives, the assistant ministry also of present and all the key other stakeholders. I think 3 points for me that are important. Violence against children in Fiji is high. And if according to what I heard regarding the last mix done last year in 2021, you have 81% of children who are experiencing one form of violence in the circle of trust by their caregiver, so it's huge. The other point that it's also important, despite many commitments, despite many, policies and so on, the problem is that still we are not delivering. And the question is how you can, because protecting and children from all forms of violence involve not only the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, but all the sectors and mainly also the communities. Another point that we discussed, and I think it's important, is preventing violence and ending violence makes economic sense. And you have the preliminary result done by the Ministry of Women, Youth and Children, sorry if I mixed the name, and with the support of UNICEF showing that it costs 3.3% of the national GDP. So it's huge. So if you invest on it, and you will have a high return. And the last but not the least, we were discussing also a lot about cultural and traditions. But what we discuss also is the fact that you have positive norms, you have positive cultural tradition. So how you bring them on board to make sure that all these religious leaders, all these community gatekeepers became wonderful child rights defender, and it's possible because it's already occurred in many countries. So today we had all on board, and the last point, because you have a meeting here, regarding all the economic, many ministry of the economic from the region, and it's also to start thinking when you are taking economic decision, how these decisions are impacting children, and I think it's really, really important. So these are the main outcomes. I can tell you I am coming from a country when it was the same, Morocco, and it changed. So if it changed there, it can change here. And why? But what is important is how you are dealing with. It's not about only having law. You can have strong law that it's prohibiting, corporal and humiliating punishment, because humiliation also and discrimination is also one punishment. If it's not only about law, it's also what kind of alternative you are putting in place, how you really support parents and community to have this positive discipline that is respectful of the tradition, because we have in the mindset that if we are not beating, these children is not going to obey. So, but what is important that through positive discipline and involving parents and communities and the religious leader is possible. And you have wonderful example done when you have a peer-to-peer, when you have identifying some ambassadors at community level that become, the trainers of that. So you can make it. It's not normal that we can use culture as justifying, violence against children. So sorry, I am sure that in your culture you have positive aspects. So why we are dealing only with that? So I think it's really important, and it is possible, because in many countries with very conservative things regarding gender, regarding violence, regarding child marriage, regarding sexual reproduction, reproductive health, things change. It's the way you are embarking these people. You need the both. Legislation is a legal framework, and this is important because I want to let you know that you have some forms of violence that are crimes. When you are, sexually raping a child, these are crimes, and the predator, and it cannot be justified by culture, to be very frank, and I am not sure that culture justify, rape of a child. So as I say, it's unacceptable, and it's not in line with this peace and the respect. But what is important is at the same time when you need to change behavior, attitude and so on, while respecting your tradition. And in all I am coming from a culture when we learned since I was young, respect, tolerance, dialogue, and you have the same. And so why currently it's not like that? Why we are switching, seeing, the traditional only on their violence aspect? But at the same time, you need laws, but you need also, how you are accompanying, tradition. But you need also, to be very frank, build alternative. You have poverty. you have discrimination, you have social disparities. If you are not providing, alternative to that through social protection that is sustainable, fighting the discrimination, in the same time making sure that in the low-income places, in rural areas, in slums, in the peri-urban, that they have access to quality of education, that they have access. It's not only a problem of law and stopping that. You need all that at the same time, and this is a challenge. And I think to be very careful, it's not, when you allow, violence that becomes usual, for educating, but just regarding the fact that you have many other forms of violence, including sexual violence, in the circle of trust, when in the educational setting, when in the religious and cultural setting, violence becomes the only way to educate and to interact with children, it is crazy, because the impact is worse. So you have other ways to deal with it, and the community gatekeepers have a big role, and among themselves, you have not all of them are violent. So we need to be very careful to start telling all this cultural thing and justifying it, because you have to never forget, when you have stress on parents because of economic issues, because of the women is victims of domestic violence, she or the parents are really more violent and more aggressive against. So it's not only about, it's cultural, it's more than that. And if I may, I can really have a testimony, because I met your ministry, I met a lot of ministries, and I am still going to meet many other key ministries, including Ministry of Finance, and but also your Council of Church and so on. I don't remember how it was the Pacific, and all this. What I can tell you, and this is my feeling, and I am frank, and I think you was listening to me. I am really challenging all people. I think that there is really a political will, but the question is is how all these policies, legislation, and so on, with the support of UN system and with the donors, but depending on your needs, are going to be translated in concrete services, in this chain of services of quality, at grassroots level when people are living. And this is challenging, but this is the only solution really to be successful. But if I think they can make it, and with the support of all, and also with this strong political commitment.